Hey, good morning, good afternoon. This is the Jeremiah Gunn Show. Sorry I said hey. A little bit disrespectful. Hay is for horses, they told us back in the day. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show, your undocumented expert. Different than all the shows you'll ever listen to, because I can tell you what they are going to say, what they have said, what they did say, and why they said it. So if it becomes a function of who do you trust? Who can you trust? Trust is important. If you're going to listen to somebody, you got to understand if you can trust them or not. You got to understand that piece of it. And so, yes, can you trust people? Well, let's walk through them. Pick a name. Pick a name of somebody that you listen to, that you like to listen to, and do a little simple test of whether they told you something that's correct, that makes sense, that's accurate, truthful, truth. That's kind of what the difference is the truth. It's important. And some of them will tell you a lot of truth, but they won't tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help them God. I will. That's my oath. And just prove me wrong if you think that's not correct. I got proved me wrong from a guy named Charlie Kirk, a prophet, a martyr, a hero, a great light that came like a comet on our horizon for just a bit until somebody took him out, as they do when people tell the truth. People take him out because they don't like it. They do not like the truth. They do not like the truth. You know, the one that they call the greatest teacher that ever lived, he said, hey, look, if, if, if you're of the truth, if you're interested in the truth, you'll hear my voice. You'll hear my voice. And conversely, if you hate the truth, he said, they're going to hate you, my followers, because they hated me. You think they're not going to, you think they're going to hate the followers if they hated the leader? So just like the people will hate the Democrats, communists, Islamists, socialists, atheists, anti-American anarchists, they're going to hate you if you try to listen to people like Charlie Kirk. And the difference between me and him is I was in the career world and I couldn't say any of this stuff. I couldn't tell the truth. That's the system that they've built. That's the asylum that they've built for us. So this series is called the USA, U.S. Asylum. It was an asylum for the poor and tired, huddled masses yearning to breathe free, and now it's been turned into an asylum, a girls' school and an asylum combination, where the women and the children have become your oppressors because they basically stole everything from you. And so I owe you for listening. I'm an undocumented expert. That's the best kind. Like I started to say, the difference between me and Charlie Kirk is that he was 32. I'm twice that. But I've been studying this and saying what he said when I could, where I could, not in the career world because of DEI and other fascist concepts in the war on men. But I've been crying in the wilderness for a long time. Now I'm retired, free of that, so I can help be a guide through the wilderness. And you listen to somebody on the radio and radio, God, throwback. Unless it's iHeart and it's a podcast, whatever. But how do you know what they're telling you is true or not? That's the difference. And how do you know whether they're telling you enough, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So I will, and I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. I'm an investment counselor. I'm investing in your future. I owe you. I owe you because you're listening. I write to you young men because you are strong. You don't want to be children. You don't want to be infantilized in the asylum and put to bed, given your drug, put to bed. Unless you do. If you want that, you got to kind of ask yourself what that's going to look like down the road. Because step one is know your enemy. And that's what I'm going to tell you. I owe you, but you owe. We the people owe our founders, our blessed founding fathers, who did something nobody has ever done in the history of civilization. Has given us a republic, not a democracy. And so you'll get that if you listen to this show. You'll get the difference between them and what the understanding of is. But you don't even have democracy anymore. It's not even a Democrat party, which doesn't mean anything. So I owe you for listening. You owe we the people everything. They pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And so what we have today, we have people that lick the hand that feeds them and bites the hand that freed them. You got to get out of the asylum. We began this series. I'm having trouble with the music. I'm having some technical difficulties, and my super tech, who's awesome, is off today. So it's a Chick-fil-A day. So I started playing the themes from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a great story about how DEI and women have taken over the war on men, and they're going to keep you in the asylum. They give you a lobotomy, they give you shock treatment. They'll do whatever it says now that they've diagnosed you without a license as having something with phobia concatenated on the end. Oh, you're misogynist, you're homophobic, you're Islamophobic, you're xenophobic. I guarantee you, most of these people that shoot those words out that they just learned 15 minutes ago, for most of them, they don't even know what they mean. I was at work one day, and the DEI queen that was over me, totally undeserved. I used to have to hear this from everybody in the company about how she should not have been in that role, but DEI put her there. Anyway, she had a staff meeting one day, and she was talking about how excited she was to talk about microaggressions. She just learned about them, and oh boy, there's something, these microaggressions that our handlers, our caretakers just gave us a few minutes ago from the Democrat government education mediatainment complex. Head Start through PhD. They gave it to her, and she had to go to a little seminar. Boy, did I learn some. And she started to explain, because that was the way to break the ice in these weekly staff meetings, is tell you the latest things she learned to help us out. And man, I knew everything there was to know about microaggressions, about this latest Marxist CRT, DEI, OBS, and it's CS now. Because just like with her, it's coming from cows, not bulls. So let's call it caca de la vaca in honor of the primary language of the West Coast and Southwest. Caca de la vaca. Look it up if you can't figure it out, because I'm not going to be like, Joe Rogan and all these people and just say the S word and the F bomb every other word. Holy S. No, that's really, if there's a word you shouldn't put with holy, it's probably S. So I played around with saying sanctified shite or ecumenical, ecclesiastical excrement or something. It sounds as stupid as the original comment. Isn't it fun how Jews will say, Jesus Christ, and even secular people that's not very nice. Try saying Muhammad in one of these countries that's taken over because of this, what did Gad Saad just wrote a book and he called it suicidal empathy. Well, it's not really empathy. Empathy means you can identify with them. You suffer together. When that's what the word compassion means, suffer together. They don't. You're not going to find Newscomb living under a blue plastic tarp, taking a dump and shooting up right in front of somebody's business. He does that behind closed doors, but That's what he calls compassion, because this new regime that took over. So this lady's sitting there, DEI leader of our department, who sent, after I left, she got demoted to be in charge of something much lower, as it should have been. But, she starts to talk about microaggressions, and she gets excited about telling us about it, as if she's going to. But, Bobby Knight was this famous coach. If he wasn't great, he was famous for being a hard ass. I think he played for the Army, Military Academy, West Point, or whatever. I think so. Him and Krzyzewski, try to spell that last name. But anyway, he was talking to a press conference, and they're asking him things, and he says, I've forgotten more about this game than most of you are ever going to know. So I'm not apologetic about it. In other words, I can do apologetics. I've got a certificate, degree, whatever you want to call it, in apologetics. But I'm not going to apologize because I know more than you do about it. I'm supposed to sit there. So I'm listening to, so she's going to talk about microaggressions and how she learned this. And she just starts to glaze over because she realizes she's underwater. She doesn't have any idea what the hell it is. But her job is to tell us, this brave new world, how exciting we're going to learn about this. We're going to have to go to another damn seminar on the taxpayer's dollar to learn this stuff. It's interesting. Trump asked the UK to help out with the Straits of Hormuz, for example. And they said, the woman that's in charge, Starmer, he says, no, yes, no, yes, no, mostly no. We'll help out when the war is already over. We'll lend a hand when the war is already over to something. So there's this great comedian. So then he committed to send. They get oil out of the Straits of Hormuz. We don't, but China does. So we have to go over there and solve that problem for them that Jimmy Carter started over there. So this lady named Starmer, who's in charge of the UK, I guess, to some extent, he says, yeah, we'll send an aircraft carrier. Well, there's this really great comedian. He's Persian and Italian. His name's Nicholas DeSanto. And he said that the reason that, this aircraft, we'll send an aircraft carrier. I think they have one. And we'll send it over, and it didn't leave, and it didn't leave, and it didn't leave. Like in the Pirates of Penzance, where the inspector general says to the Keystone Cops, "Yeah, but you don't go." They're singing this song, "We go, we go, we go," and he says, "Yeah, but you don't go." Hilarious stuff. But anyway, he says, "Yeah, we'll send our one aircraft carrier," and it hasn't left in a week. And it takes a while to get to the Persian Gulf. The Gulf of Arabia, I think, as Trump calls it, rightfully so. But they haven't earned the right to have things named for them. Devils and cowards. It's a combination of devils, 5% devils, 95% cowards. That doesn't make a country. It certainly doesn't make a sovereign country. So anyway, this great comedian, Nicholas DeSanto, Persian, raised in Italy, he says, well, the reason they haven't left yet is there's still 4 sailors on board who haven't completed their online harassment training, so HR won't let them deploy. So anyway, you want to lick the hand that feeds you and bite the hand that freed you. That's not a good strategy. So you guys, you men that are kind of men and kind of not. Any man that's watching The View, I love these guys called the Cartier family. They don't know a lot, but they're kind of waking up, and they kind of just react to things and give you their opinion right off the cuff without any thought about it. But they're pretty cool guys. They all ran track together at school down south, and then they started this podcast where they just react to everything. And so they're talking about, they're saying that they look at the barbershop, big icon of the community, and they see black guys watching frickin' The View. Come on. If if that side of the aisle, if that's enemy, the enemy in the other trench across no man's land from us is just conducting this full-on war on men, and you're just saying, well, I'll stay on the plantation. Sure, sounds good. Well, you don't really have a right to do that. Martin Luther King said you don't have a right. No one has a right to do what's wrong. You can't act like children. You got to stop acting like children. You got to grow up. So you got to figure out know your enemy. I'll give you one of them, charlatan defraud. Charlatan defraud. He has Hillary on. He buys her lies. He has Biden on. Does anybody, he lets Biden come on his show and say, if you don't vote for me, pal, you ain't black, y'all. And then, he tells other stories. That's all he's ever done is lie his whole career, Biden. That's all he's ever done. And just shoot his mouth off. He's very proud of him. So I think he went to Jesse Jackass's funeral and he said, I know more than all of you people. You really believe that? If you're a fake trapper, you do. But do you believe that he got up at 6 a.m. or got there by 6 a.m. to go to Catholic Mass every day before school, let alone once a week, once a month, once a year? And then he went over to the black church, and then he's spinning yarns about popcorn or corn pop and Esther Williams. And I was the only white lifeguard at an all-black swimming pool. Why? Why is that? Why do you guys want a plantation massa? Did you believe then he also went over to the Catholic Church, the black church, and then he tells a Jewish group, he's got a Jewish group in front of you. His handler says, hey, this group today, right now, they're Jewish. And he says, I've been to shul more than you all. Shul is a Jewish Hebrew word for school. It's their catechism thing. Do you believe that? And then he says they called me Bidenopolis because I was always part of the Greek community, the Greek church. I mean, this guy, you know what they called the devil in the wisdom literature? They call him the father of all lies. I mean, that guy ain't the father of all lies. He calls Trump Hitler, and he says that his followers are not deplorable, not, what did Hillary say? Deplorable and irredeemable. He said they're garbage. That's why Trump went and rode on a garbage truck. What a genius. What a brilliant savior that guy is. He called you garbage. No, not if you're on the plantation voting for whoever charlatan defraud. He wanted Kamala Harris. And now Stephen A. Smith is making, he's bumping his gums about running for president. What? Because why? Because Obama and Harris and Biden proved that anybody, and Hillary proved that anybody could do it. Anybody could be president. Then so Biden calls him Hitler and says his followers are garbage and Nazis, and he did the fine people hoax. He just trotted that out. He's just a frickin' puppet. He's like the puppet we call, what's called Winchell Mahoney or Jerry Mahoney, whatever, as a kid. Mortimer Snerd. He's kind of like Mortimer Snerd from the old days. You sit on your knee, you put your hand in his back, George Soros or Obama or whoever it is, and just tell him, say this, say that. He calls Trump Hitler. Then he glad hands him in front of a roaring fire at the White House, and he calls out to him in the portico, welcome back, Mr. President. Welcome back to your... What? And you trust that guy? So who do you trust? Who do you trust? I would say somebody who says, that sexual gender dysphoria is a mental illness, but not this month. We're having a sale on double mastectomies and castration. Because now we're going to put people on the Supreme Court because they're a woman, and she's going to say, I don't know what a woman is. So this is what they've done to you. Traitors. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to Candace Owens or Kimmy Kimmel or Bill Maher, any of these people. There isn't really time. There's not really time. I don't think that any of our troops ever sat with a megaphone or a radio when they were invented and listened to the enemy and then get ready to fight them the next morning. This isn't rocket science. Although we ran a rocket scientist, and I voted for him, Ben Carson. Not Herman Cain. We had a rocket scientist and we had a brain surgeon. What have we been saying all our lives? This isn't rocket science. This isn't brain surgery. Neurosurgeon. We had a neurosurgeon running. I voted for him too. So, tolerance in the United States is us tolerating the non-believers, the ones who don't believe in either God or the founders who believed in God. John Adams said, "No king but Jesus." And somehow you're just marinated and baptized into this horrible soup that you get from the universities that are owned cradle to grave. The left, the women of the left own everything. So thankfully, some of these people are leaving. This election, Trump got more blacks and browns but men, not so much women. There's a reason why men are called to do certain things and why women are not. Because our founders knew that if you give effeminate, effete, silly women like Kimmy Kimmel and Newscomb and Colbert and all these guys, Mom Dummy, he's the latest one. He wants to suck you into the warmth of collectivism, even though Ayn Rand told us everything we needed to know about it. So did everybody else who has any skin in the game and any brains and not a useful idiot. So I'm talking to Americans, patriots. People aren't going to, play it down the middle. Our tolerance is tolerating those people who don't believe. That's what the separation of church and state was. That's what it was. You don't just make something up. What does Joe Rogan or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, what do they know about anything? What do they know about? We know Victor Davis Hanson knows a lot about a lot. We know that. We know the American mind and the uncommon knowledge. We know they do. Hillsdale College. We know all these things. But the ones who are running the game, the ones who are running the scam, the caca de la vaca cowshite, most BS comes from the gender gap today. The virtue signaling, the performative, suicidal sympathy. They sympathize. One guy wrote a book called The Pity Party, and they're running the asylum. So it's time to get out. Like Jack Nicholson tried to get out. You're pulling for him to get out. He kind of enjoyed it. It was a break from prison when he tried it. But he was just running a scam, and they didn't let him out. They didn't let him out. They ground him up, chewed him up, spit him out. They did a lobotomy, and they did a shock therapy, and that's what these guys are doing. Do you want PMS DNC or Joy Behar or Whoopi Goldberg or Sonny Liston or whatever her name? You want them telling you what to think? My God, it's time to grow up. Sorry, it's time to grow up, whether you go to church or not. We're all in this together. We're all in this together, those that believe in God and those that are thinking about it and those that don't. It doesn't change the fact that you have a country that has a covenant, that has a CC&Rs for the HOA, it has a living last will and testament, it has a contract, a prenuptial agreement, a birth certificate. That's your birthright citizenship. And you're cool with somebody just giving it away because it makes them feel good? You know, you give asylum. They don't take you into theirs. But you got to have your head on straight. You got to have your act together if you're going to run an asylum and be able to provide it to the people of the world that deserve it and want it, and not just want a free handout and don't really understand what this is, what we got here. So this kind of a mixed message, it involves religion and it involves secularism. Because as Martin Luther King said, we may have come in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We didn't all come in the Mayflower. But you have no right to diss those people. You have no right to diss. I used to coach youth sports all the way up to high school, and I used to tell them, your parents are bringing you up. Don't let them down. The love and respect. Love and gratitude are two sides of a coin. If you have gratitude, you'll have more love. You have more love, you'll have more gratitude. You don't have a right to tear down what your fathers set up. Your fathers, your grandfathers, they fought and died to defeat communism, Nazism, which is socialism. Don't kid yourself. Winston Churchill said the difference between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union is like the difference of the North Pole and the South Pole. He's a pretty witty guy. Very, very clever man. And there is no difference. That's what Ayn Rand said. Socialism is suicide and communism is murder. That's it. You don't have to hear a new spin that, well, yeah, but I won't be able to afford a house. And the reason for that is because other people are rich. You don't hate the rich. You don't listen to rich people like Bernie and Pocahontas and Hillary and Obama. Listen to their recipe for, there's this guy named Steiner or something like that running, Tom Steiner or something, just ass, complete ass. Another Bloomberg too. He's running ads in California. I'm running as a progressive. I hope he is. I hope he's running as a progressive. And I hope that the blue no matter who people don't understand what a progressive is and go vote for him so that splits the vote and we don't get him. There's no such thing as a progressive. Woodrow Wilson was a progressive. It was a nightmare. It was a racist nightmare, just like this guy. But the guy, what's he running on? Free lunch, free the prisoners, raise taxes on the rich, and, oh yeah, abolish ICE. He's not going to, no, demolish. He's going with a big word. Not abolish, demolish. So he basically wants a Confederate States of America. He wants to be able to say, I'll speak for all of the Californians and deny them of their equal protection under the law. The Supreme Court right now, they're looking at, what are they talking about? I don't know, it takes them 12 hours. I've been on jury duty. Why does it take them 12 months to decide something like, I don't know, what is a woman? The Babylon Bee had a thing that said that they're going to bring in a kindergartner to explain to them what the difference between a man and a woman, a boy and a girl, because I guess they don't know it. So all of these institutions have been destroyed. They're like a house that's just rotted out, eaten up by the termites, the parasites. And they're still standing, but don't take and point to them and say the proof that it's still standing is proof that that's what our forefathers wanted. No, they've actually destroyed this place. Yeah, I have the state I'm living in behind enemy lines. We have a thing called taxation without representation. I have never had representation in my life. And yet the Constitution says, Article 4, Section 4, that I have a right. Every person has a right to a Republican form of government. But they're not even interested in what I think. They're not interested in what you think if you're blue no matter who. They're just riding that wave of power. Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. What did Newsom do for California recently? He spent $19 million to a New York PR firm to try to make it look like California is better than it is. Did you hear that? Maybe I shouldn't be interested in things like that. But if my neighbor isn't, then what am I supposed to do? Why didn't he hire a California PR firm? And by the way, why didn't he put that money to making this state better instead of allowing idiots like this useful idiot, I think her name was Sanchez or Gomez or something, down near Tijuana in Congress, state Congress, state representative, and she sent out a text, F Elon Musk, and he sent back a message received, and he moved out. He moved out his. Here they, how long did we have to pass laws about electric cars and everything? And here comes a guy like fell out of the sky, an absolute godsend, the reincarnation of Ben Franklin, and he comes a patriot, an immigrant, and he makes another car industry, a whole industry, and outsells the big three. Oh, good. That's good, right? No, Sanchez has to come out, and a woman who should never be in Congress and probably got elected by illegal votes. Hopefully intelligent citizens didn't put that in. And she texts F Trump, just like the mayor in Mogadishu says F ICE, and like Hollywood does. What is it again? Please repeat after me. The government, Democrat government, education, mediatainment complex. The tail's wagging the dog. We don't have what we had. And someone said if we don't fight like hell, you're going to lose your country. You're going to lose this country. So, he started with the music from Cuckoo's Nest. He tried to scam the system. He tried to play along. And Nurse Ratched got him. The system got him. He tried to save the guys. He found out that he was there just trying to get out of a prison rap. He thought that'd be easier time served. But they got him. So he was going to try to save everybody. So what are you doing in the asylum? What are you doing today? They used to say in old movies, what did you do in the war, Daddy? Well, your fathers, your grandfathers, they fought communists and Nazis, and you're going out and your kids are electing them. They're cool. 41% of young people think communism is cool. That first happened with the people from Cuba. They were very staunch. The first wave of people that sought asylum here to flee Cuba under Castro, Democrats, they came, they were death on. I was in Spanish class, 10th grade with a Cuban guy. He made varsity baseball. He had a beard in 9th, 10th grade. So, yeah, that'll tell you something. But he hated Castro, okay? But that's kind of the boomer generation. The kids, the younger generation, they don't have what Ilhan Omar's daughter went over there. Code Pink went over there to show their solidarity to how much they hate Trump. I mean, do these people ever stop for a second, these women, and stop and think about what are they doing to women, let alone other countries, other cultures, other people? The UN my wife told me the UN just voted. They've done this before, but they just voted for Iran, I guess IRGC, to be on the committee or whatever the hell that's all the UN has as committees for women's rights or something. Yeah, that place that just executed a woman because she was wearing her burqa wrong. And just our absolute hell on women's lives. How many women will you see put on a burqa and go to a rally and bitch about Charlie Kirk or whoever else, David Horowitz today? You're slitting your own throat. Like Margaret Thatcher, who was a woman, said, if you want to slit your throat, don't come to me for a bandage. So, these women were not happy being without natural affection, like the good book says. Without natural affection. They're destroying civilization. They're not happy destroying their own family, their own children, but now they're going after yours. They're going after yours. Your life, your way of making a living, your career, your state, your country, your world. Gutfeld had this blob the other day. She looked like Jabba the Hutt crossed with the Sea Witch, hacked off hair, wearing a mask in 2024. And she's talking about, she's a professoress, and she's talking about how 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds want to transition, but their parents don't get it. She's not going to have any kids. I kind of guarantee, but, there was a documentary series called Why We Fight. And there's a great documentary. There was a great documentary called Five Came Back. And there was a bunch of famous directors, John Ford, Houston, Frank Capra. I can't remember the other two, forgive me. But they were tasked with, the military took them over and joined forces with Hollywood and said, we got to make a series of propaganda films, educational films for these troops, because the greatest generation they didn't even learn. They didn't learn. They were raised. They didn't learn what this was all about. So they had to do a film series called Why We Fight and show them these training films about how terrible the Nazis at that time. It should have included the communists, but FDR was in love with them. So they kind of called it Why We Fight, because, in the beginning of Patton, he explains that, the Vanity Fairs, the Vogue magazines, and all these people, Saturday Evening Post, all the media attainment complex, they were saying that we don't want to fight. Isolationism kills more than anything else. So they went, we're supposed to call them the greatest generation because they went over to fight. And they fought against, they put cardboard in their shoes and ate grease sandwiches and ketchup during the Depression, and then they went over and fought people that put people in ovens, both in Asia and Europe. So God bless them, but you know what? They had one job, come back, and it was to indoctrinate their children on why we fight. They didn't do it. They raised the worst generation. Henry Fonda raised Jane Fonda. And Hillary, their parents, Obama's parents, raised the worst generation. And that one is competing to do even a worse job on their kids. There was this little joke that went around. So what do you get when you cross a crooked politician with a sleazy lawyer? And the answer is a daughter named Chelsea. And, here's a little test. You tell a woman a joke like that and they'll go, oh, because they think you're making fun of her looks or something. That's the last thing on your mind. It's a funny joke because it's true. Comedy is true. It's funny. A horrible person. Horrible people. Horrible people. She goes and, oh man, that's a whole nother show. There's a whole show on Hillary Rotten Klingon and her husband, so-called. Horrible people. And, but he was the first black president. So anyway, so the greatest generation comes home and they don't, they raised Jane Fonda, Newscomb, Slick Willie, Mom Dummy, Stephen A. Smith, Colbert, Kimmel, Kimmy Kimhell, Timmy Tampon. So, these women are without natural affection. They don't understand that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world in a good or a bad way. But bring it back to religion for a second. Was Jesus nice? Was he just nicey, nice? Was he Mr. Rogers? Not really. Not really. He's the captain of your faith. He's the captain of your team, your platoon, your division, your battalion. And he said, these people, he quoted one of the prophets, as he always did, being a good Jew, a great Jew. He said, These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. So I'm talking to you Christians and pastors who call yourselves Christians and priests and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not talking to you women masquerading as priests and pastors. That's a whole nother topic. But you men who gave up everything without even a fight, they're without natural affection. Mother Nature, they don't even love their own children, let alone yours. Without natural affection means that what's only natural for them to do, have children and take care of them, caring nurturers. They're horrible right now. You know, Jesus told the women of Jerusalem, they were crying for him because he was on his way to the hill to be executed on the cross. And they yelled out, moaning and crying. And he said, women of Jerusalem. Yeah, Jerusalem. Yeah, it kind of belonged to them. Bethlehem, even Bill Maher pointed out that Bethlehem is one of the holiest sites in Christendom, and it's in control of Islamists. Israel doesn't even have that anymore. And anyway, they yelled at him, "Blessed is the womb that gave you birth and the breast that nursed you." It was a big thing to be a mother. It's only women can do it. No matter what your university or your TV show is saying today. But he said, don't cry for me, cry for yourselves. Because if they do things like this when the tree is green, what are they going to do when it's dry? Well, he wept over them himself when he saw that they weren't going to pay attention, let alone do the right thing. He said, there's going to come a time when people will say, "Blessed is the womb that never gave birth and the breasts that never nursed." Don't we hear that? Don't we hear that today? People are without natural affection, and they're leading the church to murder and mutilate. They're the guests here. People that don't understand the founding fathers and what was set up here, separation of church and state, the Constitution, all this stuff. They deserve. I mean, they don't even appreciate the tolerance. They want to take over. First we abhor, then we tolerate, then we embrace. Okay, so it was a misunderstanding of the separation of church and state that killed Christ, just like Charlie Kirk. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Newscomb, using your money to buy billboards to promote abortion and putting Christian Bible verses, New Testament verses on it. Do you think Kamilala has ever thought about abortion? Do you think SCOTUS, that says, "I don't know what a woman is going to be able to render a good decision on that? So what do we do? What are we going to do? First of all, don't buy the lies. Know your enemy. Biden and SCOTUS, he tried to destroy. SCOTUS has been destroyed from what it was originally intended. That'll be a whole other show, but, Ben Shapiro and Prager, they don't like Trump, but now they do, but now they don't, One thing you have to know is when you're an adult is that we're at war. This isn't a game. It's not a video game. We're at war. We're at war right now. The culture war is a holy war. You're going to have to take a side. It's a civil war. So what are you supposed to do about this to get out of the asylum? Well, first of all, you got to get the keys back. You let the stupid drunk children drive long enough. You're going to have to take back the wheel and say, "Hey, I'm not really planning to die right now. What is Canada doing with cars, since we mentioned that analogy? The police, which the word means authority, they're telling you to put your keys on the porch so that they won't break into your house when they steal it. That's their job now? That's the police's job now. You talk about a parallel universe. It's not to arrest them. It's not to do a bait car and catch them and prosecute them or deport them. It's to tell you how to stay safe. Better safe than sorry. Well, you've already lost the country. They're doing death. They're doing voluntary suicide, medically assisted suicide. They have a cute name for it, MAID, MAID. Yeah, you're their maid. You'll do whatever they tell you to do. So you don't wake up too late. So part of being an adult is understanding that you don't blather about a two-party system or whatever. You have to do the vital thing. You can't just say, well, you can't fight City Hall. You have to. So one thing is, we do have a two-party system. All of the parties, communist, socialist, anarchist, is glommed into the one party, the Democrat Party, because they're shameless whores. They don't stand up for their own name, which doesn't have a good reputation. Anyway, you got to vote against the wrong one. For a while, you got to vote against the wrong one. There can't be any of this midterm sweep and the red took back over and the blue took over. You can't do that. You can't put people in power that are trying to destroy you with your own hand that marks that ballot. And you can't stay home, because if they outnumber you, they'll run your life. They're already doing it. Anyway, thank you for listening. Jeremiah Gunn Show. Let's get out of the asylum, please. It's up to you.